All right, welcome to the Halloween edition of the Hurry Up. I'm Darin Gantt. This is Kassidy Hill. It's a very spooky edition of the Hurry Up.
Lots of spooky things.
Yeah, so many spooky things. How about this for a Halloween theme? Diontae Johnson, quote, the Panther wide receiver, nevermore. He's a Raven now. So, yeah, the big news this week, obviously, Diontae Johnson traded to the Ravens.
You know what? That works because Edgar Allan Poe kind of fits on Halloween.
There you go.
Nevermore sounds like yeah. Have you ever played the game, is it Edgar Allan Poe or Taylor Swift?
I don't think so, but we'll get to that later. In the Hurry Up, we got a lot to get through. Busy news day, as they always are. A lot of stuff going on this week. You know, the big news is obviously the Diontae Johnson trade, sending him to the Ravens for a little bump in draft compensation. Wasn't a big return, but wasn't really expecting a big return for a guy who came here as a rental, a short-term player to begin with.
Yeah, this was always kind of at worst and at best a one-year deal, and so it's just 8 games less than what they were kind of originally thinking. But they've got a lot of promise in that wide receiver room with Xavier Legette, with Jalen Coker, pass catchers with JT Sanders, and so they've got a lot there to build with. Adam Thielen should be coming back pretty soon here from his hamstring injury, and so not to gloss over at all what Diontae Johnson was able to do for that receiving corps, because he did a lot and did a lot of good work. But they've got enough pieces there that they can start to build around for the rest of this season and looking ahead as well.
Trade deadline is next Tuesday. Still the possibility for some news around the league. I don't necessarily expect it to be very busy around here. That's why I'm taking next Tuesday off to work the polls. She's got you at Panthers.com. If anything happens, nothing's going to happen.
Famous last words.
Yeah, exactly. You never know what's going to happen.
Now
that's why
you
tune in and watch. But the Panthers are not in this position where they're fire sailing all their good players. I think if anything's clear, there are guys like J.C. Horn, guys like Chuba Hubbard, who they want to keep, who they see as the core of this team in years to come. So if teams call, teams are always going to call if they smell blood in the water and you trade one person. So I'm sure Dan Morgan's getting a ton of calls about, guys he wants to keep.
And you're pretty much always going to pick up the phone. That's what you're obligated to do as a GM, is to at least hear somebody out. But it's not going to be a fire sale, and I don't think they're going to really be buyers either.
No.
I think this was the bigger move that we're going to see. If anything else, it would be, I don't imagine anything else shocking coming.
Dan Morgan likes him draft picks, and right now he's got 9 in next year's draft, 7 in the first 5 rounds, so that's a benefit to him. Beyond the trade, the other big news this week, Bryce Young gets a second start at quarterback. I mean, Dave Canales basically said he wanted to take the decision out of Andy Dalton's hands, knowing Andy would say, yeah, I'm good, whether he's really good or not. He's a week removed, 9 days now, from a car accident where he sprained that thumb pretty good and couldn't even pick up a football last week.
It's a significant injury for a quarterback, especially on their throwing hand.
They need those.
Right, and you go out there and you hit it against a helmet one time and you're set back even farther. And I think you saw enough from Bryce last week. Maybe not everything you wanted to see, but you saw enough to feel confident about seeing what he can do with this young receiving core, taking another week of snaps in a game. Probably will have Andy as the backup. Canales said that is the plan. Yeah. And so it's a 1-week thing. It's week to week. This is not a rest of the season decision just yet. But interesting to see what it looks like after the Saints game.
No question. I think the biggest thing I saw out of Bryce last week was his willingness to step into some pockets. I mean, early this year when pressure came, he was escaping, but he really stepped up into the pressure in the face of a Denver defense that's really good at that and delivered some of those throws downfield again to Legette and Coker.
He had 10 passes or 10 completions that were over 10 yards, and 2 of those were over 20 and came with an additional 15 for roughing the passer. To your point, stood in the pocket, took a shot that he knew was coming just to kind of get the ball downfield. So that was 2 positives. He got it farther downfield than they had been getting it in the first 2 weeks, and was willing to kind of stand in there and not leave as soon as the pressure started crashing.
Right. Speaking of that protection, Ike Ekwonu, Panthers left tackle, out of practice yesterday. Not really sure what his status is going to be for the rest of the week. We'll keep an eye on that with the injury report the rest of the week. But Ike was in and out of the game the other day. When he first came out, they put Jarrett Kingston, a rookie, in at left tackle. When they brought him in when he came out for the last series of the game, they mixed it up a little bit. So you had Brady Christensen at left tackle, Cade Mays stepping in at center because they were without Yosh Nijman. Yosh is back on the practice field this week, so they've got a couple options there up front.
This is exactly why you have 8 to 10 offensive linemen and why you cross-train them. because they get beat up just about more than any other position. And obviously you would love to have your starting 5 all throughout the season. It's almost not feasible in today's NFL. But this is why you cross-train guys, which is something they have done. So they definitely have the options there. Obviously, you would love to have Ike Ekwonu, first rounder, who's been playing well out there on the line, but you've got options where it's not quite as much of a detriment as it was last season.
Right. And if there's been one stable thing for the Panthers this year offensively, it's the fact that that line has played well regardless who's in there. They've been through Corbett at center, Christensen at center, Chandler Zavala stepping in for Damian Lewis for a week, but regardless, that line has played pretty well all season long.
Yeah, very few pressures, very few sacks. I mean, the Denver game, I'm trying to remember how many times Bryce was sacked. It wasn't enough to be notable.
Right.
Maybe
it wasn't a jailbreak by
exactly. And this going into
imagination.
that game, the Broncos were, I think, second in the league or something like that with 28 sacks. And Bryce was very well protected by that offensive line against a pass rush heavy defense.
Yeah.